Hello and welcome to Global Business on CGTN. I'm Lulu, and these are headlines we're tracking at this hour. Market reform. New trading rules take effect on Chinese mainland stock exchanges, aiming to curb speculation and boost liquidity. Tech testbed. Formula E is back in Shanghai, and we discover how race day experiences turned into real-world EV technology. Extreme weather. Wildfires and heat waves sweep through Europe, exposing cooling gaps in homes, cities, and supply chains. As usual, let's get a quick check on Chinese mainland markets. As we can see, key indices today finished the day lower. Now, this comes as fresh Asia trading rules came into force today. The exchanges extended after-hours fixed price trading and allow wider price fluctuations for certain stocks. This is where key indices stand. By the end of the day, the benchmark Shanghai Composite Index barely moved, standing above 4,000 points mark. However, we do see cuts here on mid-cap focused Shenzhen Component Index, and tech shares also dived about 1.8%. We'll have more details later on in the program on who are the movers and shakers of the day. For now, here's a check on how regional shares are performing and how Wall Street closed on Friday. New trading rules took effect across Chinese mainland stock exchanges on Monday, with the Shanghai and Shenzhen bourses seeing the most notable changes. To meet those growing needs of institutional investors, after-hours fixed-price trading, previously limited to the stock market and China Next Index, has been expanded to cover all A shares and ETFs in both Shanghai and Shenzhen. And between 15:05 and 15:30, investors are now allowed to trade at the day's closing price. And on the main boards, daily price limits for ST and Star ST, stocks those under special treatment for financial or operational risks, have been doubled from 5% to 10%. Analysts say the wider band is expected to improve pricing efficiency and reduce the artificial distortions often caused by narrower gaps. In the meantime, the Shanghai Stock Exchange has replaced continuous bidding with a closing call auction for fund trading. Closing prices are now determined through the call auction process. Now, to discuss the long-term impact of the new trading rules, we're joined by Chen Jiahe, Chief Investment Officer of Nova Market Technologies. Jiahe, great to have you on the show with us. Do you think the new rules will help to reshape order execution models and also large position allocation practices of institutional investors?
Hi, Lily. Yes, one of the most important features of these new trading rules is that they give more time for the trading after 3 o'clock in the afternoon. That means for large funds and institutional investors who have to trade a lot of equities, they will have more time to trade at the fixed price after the regular opening session, which will definitely reduce the fluctuation of prices and make the trading much easier for them. And as a result, will cause less disturbance to the closing price of stocks. Meanwhile, because these new rules are aiming at reducing the fluctuation of prices that could be caused by some details of the old trading rules, that means for the trading department of institutional investors who have a lot of money to handle, the execution and the trading will be easier for them.
And also, we read in the new rules that it aims to tighten supervision over order cancellations, also curb drastic late session price swings, will quantitative strategies that rely on late market volatility, frequent order and cancel cycles, as well as ultra short-term spread arbitrage face overall performance revaluation now and forced strategic transformations.
Yes, definitely. To understand the relation between market efficiency and the extra earning made by the quant funds, we have to know how the funds are making their money. They make their money because the market makes mistakes. They make their money because there is arbitrage opportunities, because the price fluctuation and the market volatility are large enough for the quant programs to grab the smaller opportunities that can hardly be grabbed by human traders. When the market is more smooth with these new rules, when the price fluctuation becomes less and the rule of the market becomes more clear, the advantage will go to the long-term value investors. And for the quant funds and the speculators who are aiming at grabbing opportunities at short term, they will find the situation to be more difficult under these new rules.
So what about retail investors? Do you think the new rules and the new framework can actually help them to transform from a sentiment-driven speculative trading to now a rational long-term investment decisions?
In some extent, yes, these new rules will make the market's performance more smooth, therefore bring more opportunities for long-term investors and less opportunity for short-term speculation. Looking into the long term, a market that is more stable will be able to perform better with the function of supporting the development of the real economy. For retail investors, this is also a very good chance for them. They can be trading in a market that is more stable, more value creation, and less speculating. Of course, the education of retail investors takes a very long time, and this changing of the market trading rule is one step of the whole work. There will be a lot of things that we have to do, such as educating the retail investors, supporting the long-term value investment funds, especially the mutual funds where a lot of retail investors are buying, further reforming the market to make it more efficient and more transparent, all sorts of things.
Well, thank you so much, Xiaohe. Please stay with us for more discussions down the program. And in the meantime, China's central bank injected a net 49.5 billion yuan, or about $7.3 billion into the banking system on Monday through open market operations. The People's Bank of China conducted a 7-day reverse repo worth 7 billion yuan and 1 trillion yuan buyback reverse repo, fully meeting demand from primary dealers. The operations came as 157.5 billion yuan of 7-day reverse repos and 800 billion yuan of buyback reverse repos matured. Liquidity conditions have eased, with the overnight Shibor, which is a key intra-bank lending rate, falling to 1.369% and the 7-day Shibor to 1.39%. Analysts now expect funding to remain broadly loose in the near term, as seasonal factors and government bond supply are not seen as major drains on liquidity. Let's get a closer look at how markets in the region are trading today. For that, we cross over to Timothy Pope in Shanghai. Hi there, Tim. Let's start with Chinese main markets. We see new trading rules coming into effect today. So how did shares kick off the week's trade?
Hi there, Lily. We did see a bit of a shift in trade on the Chinese mainland markets today, away from tech names a little bit and towards cyclical stocks. That shift had helped the Shanghai Composite Index stay positive for most of the session, but it did slip into the negative just ahead of closing time. The cooler attitude to tech today had the Shenzhen Component down by 1.2% and the Chinex board down 1.8%. Instead of tech, we saw gains for energy and financial stocks in the main, with the big banks and coal and oil majors contributing the most to the Shanghai index. As you've been talking about so far in the program, mainland exchanges have also been rolling out those new set of trading rule changes today. In addition to some of the ones you've talked about, we've also got the daily limit for the so-called special treatment or risk warning stocks. These are companies who are flagged for financial trouble. That's been doubled from 5 to 10%. That's going to affect a fairly small section of the market, 150 stocks, but that is nearly 7 million investors. Brokerages are cautioning retail investors not to mistake this wider trading band for any sort of assessment of reduced risk, because many of these companies still do face a real chance of being delisted. Another change which took effect today, you have already been discussing, of course, is this wider after-hours trading, which is now going to cover all of the A shares and all ETFs, not just those tech board names.
So what's the story around the region today?
Well, it's actually going to be a pretty interesting week in Hong Kong. The Hang Seng advanced 1.1% today, but we saw two of its biggest recent additions sliding pretty sharply. These are both AI companies. Minimax was down 3.4% and Knowledge Atlas Technologies fell 14.7%. That's because this week is going to be a real test for the stock price and market cap of these two firms. Both of them are down off their recent highs, but Minimax stocks are up 53% since they listed on January 9th. Knowledge Atlas shares are up 1,253% since they listed on January 8th. And the reason that this matters this week is that share lockups are ending. For Knowledge Atlas, 6% of outstanding shares will become tradable, while for Minimax, a whopping 45% are going to leave lockup. That's shareholders who are looking at some very respectable gains since listing and who have been unable to cash in until now. And it's not just those two companies this week. We are going to see a record wave of lockups expiring. There's also the Shanghai Uluvatar CoreX Semiconductor, which is also going to see its share lockup period ending. Also this week in Hong Kong, we've got IPO action. I did say it was a big week. On Wednesday, we're going to see Chinese autonomous driving and robo-taxi company Momenta Global start trading. It raised $750 million in an IPO, which valued the firm at around $9 billion. And one of Apple's contract iPhone manufacturers, Luxshare Precision, is also coming to Hong Kong. This one is a secondary listing, as Luxshare already trades in Shenzhen. It's going to finalise its offering price tomorrow, make allocations on Wednesday, and it will start trading on Thursday. In Tokyo today, we saw a bit of a similar trend to the Greater China markets. The broader Topics index rose a little under 1% as those cyclical and energy stocks took over from the Nikkei's tech heavyweights. The Nikkei 225 closed flat. There was that broad sort of tech weakness, leaving it struggle to make much headway. The US markets were closed on Friday too, ahead of the 4th of July holiday, and that left Tokyo traders lacking a little bit of direction. Helping to counter that was the OPEC Plus decision at the weekend to increase oil production, and that should help stabilise sentiment, at least over Japan's energy security. Lily.
Oh, great stuff. Thank you so much, Tim, for the market wrap. That's Timothy Pope for us in Shanghai. And still to come here on Global Business. Tech Testbed. Formula E is back in Shanghai, and we discover how race day experience is turning into real-world EV technology.
The world economy as we know it is about to change. Global business reports highlight emerging markets, developing countries, and dynamic sectors worldwide. We feature top analysts and newsmakers to provide perspectives on every facet of business. From an on-the-ground perspective, we provide you with balanced and objective assessments. Fast, sharp, and insightful. Global Business. Only on CGTN.
The city of Shanghai is once again at the center of electric racing world as Formula E returns for a double-header weekend. Now, the event is as much about innovation as it is about speed. Our reporter Wang Tianyu was at trackside following how teams are turning race day experience into real-world EV technology.
The speed of electric motors, the spray of rain off the track. That was the atmosphere last weekend as Shanghai played host to two back-to-back Formula E World Championship races.
Formula E is the pinnacle of all-electric motorsport, a rolling testbed for EV technology and sustainable mobility. Today it's drizzling out here, which makes it a little bit tricky for all the drivers.
For automaker-backed teams here, the real prize isn't just finishing at the podium. It's what happens after the race, where racetrack technology finds its way onto the road.
Being there for 8 years and probably will continue, it shows Nissan's commitment to changing into the electrification. It also gives us the cutting-edge ideas, experiences, innovation, how we manage and use and leverage all those experiences on the track to the road and vice versa.
Nissan says the know-how gained from Formula E, particularly in energy management and driving stability, has directly shaped its road-ready mass-produced EVs. But despite the rapid growth of Chinese EV makers over the past decade, none of them are currently on the grid.
In my personal view, it's a matter of time. And I believe there are growing interest among the Chinese customers and the younger people in terms of the emotional touch with the racing and the sports cars. And I believe all the players will welcome the entry of the Chinese brands into the Formula E because it will also give another different level of the competition to the racing itself.
As EV races ahead both on China's racetracks and railroads, Shanghai's Formula E weekend offered a glimpse of where the competition may be headed next. Wang Tianyu, CGTN, Shanghai.
Now let's get some discussions on the technologies and commercial value from those electric racing cars. For that, let's bring back Mr. Chen Jiahe from Nova Market Technologies. Jiahe, so which Formula E technologies have been applied to mass-produced EVs already?
Well, for championships such as FE, which can use a lot of very advanced technologies, these technologies can easily be applied to the mass-produced EVs once they have been proved to be efficient and stable in the competition ground. For example, the supercharging functions that have been used in the FE championship is now being widely applied to the EVs that we can see in our daily lives. This has reduced the charging of EV from the previous tens of minutes to just a few minutes, which can make the EVs much more efficient and convenient in our daily lives. The energy recovery is also another strategy. This not only saves the energy used and makes the car more efficient, and very importantly, this technology has been able to increase the driving range of EVs, therefore make them more competitive compared with traditional cars. Furthermore, the lightweight and the stability of batteries is also a key issue that has come down from the championship of FE to our daily lives. There are many more technologies, and I think in the future we will see even more of them.
Now, speaking of which ones do you think are likely to be adopted by consumer cars in the near future?
Yes, there are many technologies that are used in FE Championship that are very high-end technologies and cannot be applied in consumer cars at the very moment. But looking into the future, our society will develop. We will see more leading technologies to be used in our daily lives. And after all, this is a pattern that our economic development has followed for many decades. Let me name two examples. First of all, ultra-high voltage charging technology will be applied to consumer cars in the future. This supercharging technology will enable the car to be charged in a very short period of time, but it has weak points. It can pose too much requirement on the power grid. It is too expensive, and it can make the battery to be unstable. But looking into the future, better technologies will overcome these weak points, and some part of this technology can be used in consumer cars. Another example would be the cooling system for the whole car. Currently, many of the racing cars in the FE Championship are using such systems because they are facing extreme operating situations. But consumer cars don't really need this system in many cases because we are not running that fast. But looking into the future, the application of this system can make the consumer cars more stable, more reliant, and reduce the possibility of accidents such as the overheating of batteries. So this can be another example that FE provides consumer cars with leading technologies.
And also beyond driving range, what will be the core competition focus of new energy vehicles going forward?
Yes, the driving range is definitely one of the most important focuses for the competition. And beyond that, there are many things. I think the most important things can be the auto driving. If we look at human drivers, we have so many weak points. We make a lot of accidents every year. We get tired while we're driving. So auto driving is definitely one of the most important focuses of new energy vehicles in the future. When I talk to people who are buying the NEVs and ask them what are the most important features that you're looking at, many people say auto driving. Another important focus would be the safety of NEVs, especially the safety of batteries. Currently, the batteries are much safer compared with the previous generations, but there are still rooms for them to improve.
Oh, great stuff. Thank you so much for your insights. That's Mr. Chen Jiahe, Chief Investment Officer, Nova Market Technologies. Stay with EVs. Chinese-made electric vehicles have entered the Canadian market. Data from Global Affairs Canada says that May was the first month of EV imports from China. Earlier this year, Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney signed an initiative with China, allowing it to export up to 49,000 Chinese EVs per year into Canada at a reduced tariff rate of 6.1%. Nina DeVries has more from the province of Ontario.
EVs at this car dealership in Mississauga, a city just outside of Toronto, are getting their last inspection before going to their owners. The cars are not from China, but that may soon change. Carnick's dealership has been watching China closely and what they are doing to make a better EV product. And it's strongly considering selling EVs from China, says General Manager Noah Liu.
We're going to evaluate their product values, their product quality, as well as see if they're up to the Canadian market's expectation in terms of price, the most important thing, the price, and also after-sales services. They're critical to the Canadian market.
According to a Reuters report, the U.S. company Tesla has already started bringing Chinese-made vehicles into Canada. And it's expected that Geely, a Chinese brand, will export Lotus EVs to Canada starting this month.
So how do Canadians really feel about Chinese EVs coming here? Well, recent surveys show they're very open to it.
An Auto Pacific survey reveals that over half of Canadian car buyers would consider buying a car made in China. Another poll by Nanos Research Group for Bloomberg News says that 53% of Canadians said it wouldn't affect their buying decision if an EV came from China. And Liu says customers have already been expressing some interest. In terms of how Canada's move to work more with China might further strain relations with the U.S., some experts say it was still a reasonable choice.
So having another partners is something that we had to do. So maybe on a high level, it sours the relationship, but at any deeper level, it's a clear step, it's a clear response.
On the flip side, Professor Barron adds that U.S. lawmakers recently introduced legislation that could prevent Chinese EVs from traveling on U.S. roads. This could have an impact on people who may want to travel to the U.S. from Canada. And when it comes to Canada's auto industry, experts say it's important the cars are manufactured here in Canada.
We want beyond just having access to Chinese cars, we want to make sure that jobs are being created here in manufacturing and research and infrastructure, because the future of the industry certainly isn't in hoping that we'll keep making gas cars in Canada.
Back at Carnex, Liu agrees keeping Canadian jobs is important.
For example, the battery, the after-sales services, the aftermarket parts, there's going to be a huge market for all that as well.
For now, the more specific details on exactly how the cars will be made isn't clear, but Canada wants to make sure it's in the driver's seat. Nina DeVries, CGTN, Mississauga.
China and Finland have pledged to strengthen cooperation and coordination to jointly address challenges. The announcement comes following a meeting between Finnish President Alexander Stubb and visiting Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi. President Stubb hailed China's remarkable progress since diplomatic ties were established in 1950. He said China brings valuable stability to the world, stressing that the 4 global initiatives proposed by President Xi serve as landmark guidance for the international community. Finland seeks more high-level exchanges with China, expanded collaboration in green economy, AI and other emerging sectors, closer multilateral coordination and joint efforts to tackle global issues. Foreign Minister Wang praised Finland's century-long rejuvenation and development. He stressed that China will remain a key force for global peace, stability and development. Noting the 105th anniversary of the Communist Party of China and China's high-quality modernization drive, Wang said that China stands ready to work with Finland to uphold their future-oriented new type cooperative partnership and share development opportunities. And during the visit, Wang also held talks with Finnish Foreign Minister Elina Valtonen. Evangelos Sipsas reports from the Finnish town of Naantali.
Earlier on Sunday, Wang Yi met with his counterpart, Elina Valtonen, the Finnish foreign minister, where they discussed numerous of topics from trade to investment, better bilateral ties between China and Finland, and I hope that Finland can also play a significant role when it comes to building more ties between China and the European Union. But also from the Finnish side, it really showed here that they want to continue this dialogue, this stable and pragmatic dialogue between the two sides, between Beijing and Helsinki. It is a very important visit, not only for the Chinese side, but also for the Finnish as well. We have to remind here to our viewers that the president of Finland had visited China over a year ago, and the Prime Minister just visited China earlier this year. It really shows that both sides want to keep this communication between the two sides open. Now, they discussed, as I mentioned, about trade, about green technology, green development, especially when it comes into health, especially when it comes to do new policy, new technologies in renewables, but also conflicts in the Middle East. It shows that the communication between the two sides is strong. It's there. They want to keep it going as it showed in the past. So it shows that not any big announcement might come out from this meeting, but for sure it's a message that shows that the two countries want to continue the dialogue, want to continue a stable relationship, and want to build on that even more in the coming years.
Namibian President Netumbo Nandi-Ndaitwah has arrived in China for a 7-day state visit at the invitation of President Xi Jinping. This is her first trip to the country since assuming office. Xu Hua has more.
The Namibian president landed in Guangzhou, South China's Guangdong province on Sunday, kicking off a 7-day state visit to China. This visit comes as the two countries celebrate the 36th anniversary of the diplomatic ties. China and Namibia established the diplomatic relations in 1990, and since then, bilateral ties have developed steadily. In 2018, the two countries elevated their relationship to a comprehensive strategic and cooperative partnership. China is Namibia's main trading partner. In 2025, bilateral trade reached $1.85 billion, up 35.7% year-on-year. China's foreign ministry said the visit will elevate China and Namibia relations to a new high, contribute to building an all-weather China-Africa community with a shared future for the new era, and support the Global South's pursuit of strength through unity. Xu Hua, CGTN, Guangzhou.
And the Namibian president's visit comes as Namibia and China seek to build on decades of cooperation in trade, infrastructure, mining and technology. The two sides are also working to implement commitments made at the Forum on China-Africa Cooperation Summit in Beijing in 2024. CGTN's Enoch Scolia reports.
China and Namibia's diplomatic relationship dates back to March 1990, just days after Namibia gained independence. 35 years later, the two countries have a comprehensive, strategic, cooperative partnership built on mutual respect and shared development goals. Today, China is one of Namibia's most important economic partners. The trade relationship is driven largely by mining, while Chinese exports to Namibia include machinery, manufactured goods, and technology. Beyond trade, Chinese investment has expanded into infrastructure, manufacturing, renewable energy, and mineral beneficiation. Chinese-supported projects, including investments in the Husab and Rosing uranium mines, continue to contribute significantly to employment, tax revenues, and Namibia's economy. President Netumbo Nandi-Ndaitwah's visit to China is expected to deepen cooperation in sectors ranging from agriculture and manufacturing to digital innovation, renewable energy, science and technology. She is scheduled to meet business leaders and visit major manufacturing and innovation centers to explore new investment opportunities aligned with Namibia's industrialization agenda. The latest engagements are expected to further strengthen trade, investment, and people-to-people exchanges as China and Namibia seek new opportunities for shared growth. Enoch Scolia, CGTN.
You're watching Global Business on CGTN. Still to come on the program. Extreme weather, wildfires and heat waves sweep through Europe exposing cooling gaps in homes, cities, and supply chains.
A vast land of 1.4 billion people. The world's second largest economy. Home to stories of the unexpected, the unimaginable, the breathtaking. Stories that touch the soul. Feel the speed, the passion. Enjoy spectacular natural and cultural landscapes. Feel the thrill of cutting-edge innovations. Discovering China. Global Biz. China Travel. We present to China never seen before. 24/7 at your fingertips.
Welcome back. The UK Maritime Trade Operations Agency reports that only 70 U.S. escorted merchant ships passed through the Strait of Hormuz in the 72 hours ending July the 4th, which is well below the pre-conflict average. The Strait of Hormuz has two shipping routes, a southern route under U.S. escort and a northern route controlled by Iran. Figures showed a steady decline in daily U.S. escorted traffic from 33 on July the 2nd to 29 on July the 3rd and just 18 on July the 4th. The agency has assessed the overall threat levels across the strait as elevated, with Iranian surveillance active and naval mines present in the waters. Navigation safety remains a serious concern. And the Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries Plus has met virtually to discuss oil production quotas for the month of August. Any adjustments would follow extreme volatility in global oil prices caused by the war on Iran and the broader Middle East conflict. The United Arab Emirates recently withdrew from OPEC as well as the wider OPEC Plus, ending its 58-year membership. John Gabriel with the AP reports from Dubai.
So far, what analysts have suggested is that OPEC will raise its daily production by 188,000 barrels of crude oil a day. Now, that's not a whole lot, but it is slowly starting to chip away at the reduction it made back in 2023 when it halted about 1.65 million barrels of oil production per day across the cartel. At the time, that was coming after some concerns in the banking industry. OPEC wanted to try to dial back its production in order to keep prices stable. OPEC long has been trying to say that it's a lever by which to keep the oil market in check, but we have just seen chaotic scenes over the last months because of the Iran war. For a time, the typical price of a barrel of Brent crude was at $120 US, which meant that people around the world, whether they were trying to fill up jet planes or fill up their car at the petrol pump, really were feeling the pain of those prices. Now, recently we have seen Brent drop back down to about $72 a barrel as of Friday, but the market remains pretty volatile in part because of the concerns over the Strait of Hormuz, through which about a fifth of all oil and natural gas traded once passed in peacetime, and now it's at the center of disputes over trying to reach a permanent end to the Iran war.
And here's a quick look at some other business headlines we're tracking at the hour. Staying with oil prices, the global benchmark Brent crude steadied at $72 per barrel in Asian trading hours on Monday after OPEC Plus decided to raise output. Prices were little changed from last week. President Lee Jae-myung of the Republic of Korea has asked officials to move quickly on chip and AI projects announced last week. The country unveiled a series of mega projects worth some $570 billion last Monday. Lee said that only speed mattered. And in the meantime, the Bank of England would give Britain's government bond market a boost this week as it reviews its leverage rules. The potential changes could help lower public borrowing costs by more than £1 billion. Well, let's stay with Europe. Wildfires in Europe have devastated more than 17,000 hectares of land across a number of Western European nations. Greek authorities have evacuated residents in Thessaloniki, the country's second largest city, as firefighters try to contain a fast-moving wildfire in the city's north. And in southern France, a forest fire has ravaged more than 1,600 hectares and is still spreading. Officials have closed the third stage of Tour de France to the public due to the risks from the fire. In central Portugal's Ronzela area, a wildfire has scorched at least 12,000 hectares of land. More than 1,200 firefighters, 400 vehicles and 15 aircraft have been mobilized to contain the blaze. And over in Spain's Catalonia region, some 500 firefighters and emergency responders are battling to contain a wildfire that has destroyed 2,300 hectares of land. The blaze is headed toward Grania and also Gavales mountains ranges in northwestern part of Spain. And since late June, a relentlessly heat wave has grilled Europe, shattering numerous temperature records and exposing a cooling gap in homes, cities and supply chains. Zhu Siyin explains how Chinese air conditioner suppliers have helped European communities to stay cool.
Let's first take a look at the big picture here. A UN organization report says there is an 86% chance that at least 1 year between 2026 and 2030 will become the hottest year ever recorded. And summers are getting hotter. That's from what we're seeing here. But Europe's homes weren't built for this. That gap is now driving a boom in Chinese air conditioners. In the first half of 2026, China's AC exports to the EU hit $3.76 billion, up over 43% year-on-year. Now, portable units alone jumped more than 70%, led by brands like Chinese brand Media. Here's why. International Energy Agency figures show only about 1 in 5 European households has air conditioning. Now, that's compared to those roughly 90% in the US and Japan. Now, the reason is structural. Many European buildings are old. Heritage rules and building codes often block drilling through exterior walls. And the traditional split unit system can cost several thousand euros once installation and renovation are factored in. So these demands didn't come from Chinese marketing. It came from climate change meeting and aging housing stock. And Chinese manufacturers are there to fill that gap with portable units that need no drilling and designs built for compact European apartments. The stakes here are not small, though. Reports say France, the Netherlands, and Belgium have recorded 3,700 excess deaths during the June heat wave. And authorities are warning that these numbers are preliminary and could rise. Now, cooling is becoming public health infrastructure. But we've all heard this debate, right? About how this is a one-way trade story, about how Chinese brands are taking over the European markets. But a closer look would find a two-way ledger. Chinese brand Hisense refrigeration plant in Serbia, for example, is creating over 1,000 local jobs. In Hungary and elsewhere, Chinese firms are building local assembly and supply networks. European retailers, from German electronic chains to Amazon Europe, are capturing sales too. So you see, consumers are getting cheaper, easier cooling. European workers and retailers are getting a share of the value, while Chinese firms, they are getting tested against some of the toughest standards in the world. For example, the strict F-gas rules, F as in Freon. Now, under Europe's heat waves, this is not a zero-sum story. It's a case of cooperation. It's a case of a manufacturing capacity, local market demand, and green regulation meeting in the same supply chain. It's a look at whether households, factories, and cities can adapt fast enough to a warming climate.
And it seems Europe isn't alone. An extreme heat wave is tightening its grip on America's east coast, with scorched pavements, smoldering street debris, and wilting crowds in Washington and New York. The city's wildlife, medical crews, and power systems are all battling record heat dome, threatening 160 million residents. Walter Morris has more.
From New England all the way south to Alabama, a heat dome is bringing dangerously high temperatures to the eastern half of the United States, with over 20 locations breaking records. The National Weather Service says more than 160 people are under major or extreme heat risk this weekend. Cell phone cameras catching the incredible moment here in Hartford, Connecticut. Roadside mulch going up in smoke under the intense summer heat. Roads seen buckling and vehicles backed up in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. And Central Park in the heart of New York City hitting nearly 38 degrees Celsius, breaking the daily record high for that location since 1966.
It's hot. It's hot. But you know, it's a different heat.
Pretty warm. We're struggling a little bit, but it's not too bad. As long as you keep to the shade and stuff, it's not the worst.
The historic heat wave hitting during the big 4th of July holiday weekend and taking a toll on celebrations. In Philadelphia, organizers forced to cancel the Salute to Independence 250 parade due to the extreme heat. And Thursday, in a different part of Pennsylvania, more than 100 people were treated for heat-related illness and 35 taken to the hospital. Authorities declared a mass casualty event after the temperature hit 41 degrees Celsius.
It is really, really hot out there.
Employees at the Franklin Park Zoo in Boston are working overtime to keep the animals cool this weekend.
So we have to tailor what we do to them to safeguard their safety and their welfare. We would do things for all animals. We will give them access to an indoor area that might be nice and cool. Some animals have very comfortable air-conditioned areas if they don't like the heat.
And as Americans try to celebrate this scorching Independence Day weekend, experts are also issuing a warning to conserve electricity. They say prolonged periods of excessive heat put significant strain on the U.S. power grid and bring an elevated risk of rolling blackouts.
Air conditioning, it draws a lot of energy, and the hotter it is outside, the harder the air conditioning has to work. Power plants are running full, the transmission lines are congested, kind of like a crowded highway. You just can't always get all the power that everyone needs.
Walter Moore, CGTN, Washington.
And that's going to do it for this edition of Global Business. I'm Lily in Beijing. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.